Welcome, I am Crime Queen, and if you are joining us for the first time, it's the channel where we have fun with words and numbers, numerology to be precise. This is where we actualize self-full love with the use of scriptural references. So, scriptural texts, we are talking about Genesis chapter 1. I have had this thing that had not given me rest until I found some solace in or understanding of what messages that were being conveyed. It's as if I have been designed to do this, and it's not a complaint because I'm really enjoying this process right now. Now, if you're new to this channel, let's quickly introduce you to Mother Eve. Mother Eve is really the bedrock of what's happening now, of course, and all derived from the story of Christ. So this template is really on sacrifice, as you can see here. Of course, we are talking numerology, and we have numbers 1 to 9, and we have the letters of the alphabet accordingly. So we go on like this. Now, just to give you a quick run how this had been devised, and intuitively, that's how we go, because I believe that intuition is key. There is a uniqueness in each and every one of us that requires us to apply our unique language with the rest of whatever it is for our personal development and, of course, for the greater good of mankind. We need to be listening to this, whatever that little voice, very quiet, that has its channel from the heart to the brain and from every part of our being, but we need to learn how it speaks to us. And so that is really essential. We hear it all the time, but this is really so very important. And that's what happened and led me on to this, because I had come to the place of thinking, well, it is Easter time. I've just started these videos, and I was really, of course, focusing on teaching lessons from the books that I had published on the Crimson Light. This is my personal journey of transformation. I call it actualizing self-full love. So it was about self-love, self-knowledge. But actually, I don't think it had taken me more than 2 weeks or so when I had this perhaps just few days, when I had this message and I come to do this thing, but then I realize it's Easter time, and it's like Spirit says, well, it's Easter time, you do something around Easter. Now, I don't always go around doing things. Even now, I didn't do anything about New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, or I don't think much about Christmas, because I'm working with my intuition. I'm going how I'm guided to do. And since then, we have not turned back from the subject of Christ, Mother Eve, Kundalini, pineal gland, and of course, which I'm going to give you the essence of this, what has derived here. So on the figures here, we have the jazz for sacrifice. So this is the S, where the snake, we have found out that the snake is really Mother Eve. The snake is Mother Eve. And of course, which we say the serpent. And if you want to also term Satan, that's okay too. But wherever this S is, that's what I have concluded. And actually, it is not in that sort of way that I had learned it to be, so I can think, oh wow, I must be evil because I'm Eve and I'm a woman, and we have been blamed for every bad thing that has happened in the earth and so on. No, this is a place of self-realization and self-acceptance and self-knowing, and that is what we are meant to do, and that is the message Mother Eve here is conveying that we ought to learn. So really, I have so much that I really have to say, but it's really in segments, and I don't want to rush too much that you miss the essence of what it is that we are trying to accomplish through this presentation. So just for the benefit of those who are new to this, and of course, because it's a new way of doing things, I think even those who have been following this guidance is still, we are still learning. I'm still getting used to it myself. So there we are with the bucket number 2 here, which is where Christ had the Last Supper. It denotes partnership. It denotes agreement, marriage, and you get the gist. Because I really want to go through this. Then we have number 3, which is 3 for luck. We always hear that. It's that vibration. The 3 is always also that W. It reflects who you are. It's like it's pointing, always moving about like a butterfly, ready to find that partnership or that W so it can vibrate. It needs attention. It seeks attention. And that's why as well, the number 3 was so prevalent through the story of Christ, because it had to seek at attention. It had to harness that attention, which has captivated the world even now. Okay, then we have number 4, which is here. It has the 9. The R is a 9 numerical value as well. So all these, of course, are in accordance. Well, not all of them, but how free has followed this numerical value of having that vibrational value. 9 on the other hand, R on the other hand is a 9, as we can see here with the inland revenue. Okay, so with the inland revenue, thinking my light is a little bit, let me see if I can adjust it slightly so you can see. Okay, I'm a night worker. I'm an owl. Okay, so basically on 9, which is the beginning of another cycle here, because we have these common denominators too, the 369, which I have been able to make very profound observation on that. I am just really excited because there is so much. It's like a stream of information has just opened up by me following the cue, my intuition, to not go further from Genesis of chapter 1 verse 7, because I started taking each verse one at a time and deconstructing them, trying to make sense of them, until I was prompted to go back into Genesis of chapter 1 verse 1. And that's when, well, I was going to say something but that's when it all happened. Okay, so there we say we call this development, DVM, of course. What else could it be? But on DVM is also the number 4, which we have turned to an axle point, as you can see. I'm going to use the light as a pointer as well. And so we see that with 9, you go through that developmental stage. Basically, you have run out of luck in this you run out of luck, or you decide to make your own luck, and you go through here. But when you go through developmental stage, you also find yourself having to make new decisions. Those decisions that we are talking about, of course, takes you, this is where in that number 6, you begin to accept or realize that you were born on the 6th day, so to speak, that you are Genesis. You are in a Genesis, an Exodus. You are in this, it's a migration. It is a migration. It is an Exodus. We are in that Exodus. And we need to be making our decisions of when, how we're going to get to that land of Canaan. But of course, we don't want this, perhaps this 40 years, or has really, we are at the tail end of it. So of course, which coincides with Uranus entering the 2nd house of the zodiac sign, which is Taurus, and I am born of Taurus zodiac sign. Okay, and basically you could see I'm just excited here. It's just, I've said this before, and I'm going to quickly put this in. I am also of the 5th month. So we are talking about, when I talk about number 5, this is where we are talking about getting into that 5th dimension. We need to be getting into that 5th dimension. It's a word I haven't used here much, but that's what it is. And that is really activating the pineal gland. This is where Mother Eve had eaten of the fruit. And of course, we can see the number 8, which also equals the number of for God. When we do God, it equals 8. And we see it equals 17. 1 plus 7 is 8. And that's just the same as Moses, of course, in the story of the children of Israel, which we are talking about, that Exodus. Okay. Then we have the word mouth equals 5. So we can see how when we get that new perspective right here, we go into that new section. The mouth, the number 5 here, actually equals Mother Eve. Now I'm going to do this quickly because what it is that I want to get the gist of the root of what I want to say. This is Eve, and so we can unpack them in other presentations. I can make references to these that I'm recording. So we can see 10 plus 4 is 14. So this is Mother Eve. 1 plus 4 is 5. Now, of course, you understand that we are trying to get this information across. So, of course, like everyone else, when you are doing a new thing, you're in a new place, you need to get your orientation together. This is where that X, which is like a 4, has been exhibited here. So again, the 4 or the X is a representation of getting your orientation together, orienting yourself like a fox would in a new territory, being mindful, crossing the road, doing things, whatever it is. Although now, as I say, we have them in the city, but obviously they feel safe enough. They have merged from the bush to the city now, and that's perhaps very symbolic of what we need to be doing, finding our way to the city. The fox is really telling us how to go to the city. The city is really up here. You're going into 8. When you are in the city, it's like no escape. So it'd be interesting to do the word city just to see what the correlation, what numerical value it is. Let's do this. Okay, city, C-I-T-Y. This is 7, 2, 9, 3. Okay, so this is 9 plus 9, 18, 19, 20, 21. So this is what I mean about number 3. It is vibrant. Okay, very vibrant. So number 3 is taking you. It's that vibration you need anyway to take you to the city. Now back to here. This is really representing 7. But of course, like we have discovered now. Now that was there even before I discovered 14 gods in Genesis of chapter 1. Excuse me if I'm not focusing on the camera point because I'm so used to focusing the other way. I'm using a new device. Okay, so I had this here because I had seen to some extent that the number 1, for instance, the number 1, when we do the numerical value for number 1, it equals 7. So I saw that there. But of course, the word saw, like when it says in Genesis, and God saw, it gives the impression that there would be 2 pieces. And if we are 1, of course we are 1 of the whole, but when we are 2 in this dimension, we become whole. This is where partnerships are formed and agreements are formed. This is where marriage, this is where it is said, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. There's also the scripture verse that where 2 shall agree upon a thing, there it shall be according to my Father which is in heaven. So towards those in those contexts, for instance, we can see that there would be a very strong inkling to have 2 sevens here to form that whole. So 7 In actual fact as well, another way of looking at it, when we see that God created man on the sixth day and on the seventh day he rested, meaning that is a completion, a complete cycle. And so seven, wherever it ends, is a demarcation of wholeness. So that's why I had left this there, and this had been there before. There again, when I do things and write certain things, like on this side of the template, for instance, everything has been intuitively guided. It's as if the spirit really tells me, no, you put this here and leave it there. It's not causing any harm. Just leave it there. And, when the time comes, you will know what to do with it. And that's what has happened. And this is what we call gypsy journey, because the gypsies, they go and set up camp in the city side, or they do, or wherever it is, they go and set up camp. And there is their eyes are always open. So this is what we call gypsy journey. This is really GPY, your GPS in line, we could say. So that eye is there. And of course, when they go to a city, for instance, there is they have to present some kind of, whether documents or something or whatever it is, like everyone else. When you travel and you go to a new place and you're going to settle, you're going to need to go to headquarters zone, which is what number 8 is about. And number 8 is the number of God. When we add 1 plus 7 is 8. So this is where you are meeting with God. You are going to see God. This is where Moses met with God on Mount Sinai, and this is where he had to, of course, take off his sandals, we were told. Now that's another story that I've started unpacking, and it is clearer and clearer that Moses had a Kundalini experience. That's what the story is about. In essence, that's what it is about. Okay, just like Christ, it was said, had prayed for 40 days and 40 nights, okay, or fasted. So now, and that just reminds me, the word fasted. So where Moses and the children of Israel took years, Christ was fast track, we could say, fasted. It was a fast way of having that experience of the Kundalini Rise, which was exactly what I did myself to have my Kundalini Rise. I did not really fast with food, because I also considered fasting from fornication, like the Christians would say, fasting from language, fasting from other ways. I was very mindful of my words and what I was doing, thinking, saying, but I had a 40-day ritual of spiritual baths, and I changed my diet. Of course, I had no meat. I was eating very healthy on greens and vegetables and lots of fluid, and of course lots of meditation. So that I did fast track like Christ. So now we know how to fast track your Kundalini Rise. Okay, now of course when you do get that burst or thrust up in the third eye, of course it is not always the nicest of experience, but of course the reward, which is where you come to total submission like Christ on the cross. You've been nailed, and that's how it felt for me. It's like I was nailed to the cross, which is 2. Cross is 2. Now I'm saying 2 because what I have also noticed, that I have repeated in another presentation, that number 2 equals the gland. The word gland is number 2. So pineal is 3 and gland is 2. When we add these 2 together, we would have 3 plus 2 would be 5. Now I just really given all this because what I really want to say in this presentation and my timer is almost limited, is that I felt this was necessary to go into giving the account of the 14 gods in Genesis of chapter 1 plus 2. And just to name them now, so let's just do this. So we have the God said, which is Mother Eve, who comes into these 3 5s of 15 right here. This is Mother Eve. This is the number 5. Now, Mother Eve takes us and she shows us how to do this. So it is the God said. Then we have the God saw, which comes to 7 when we do the numerical value. Then we have the God divided. We can see the division as well is happening here, and there are 2 holes here for breath, for where that comes into play as well. We'll see how that shows up later. These are gods who were creating there, and the God called, of course, call, we have echo. Echo, I think I did the numerical value for echo. It's either 3 or 5 thereabout, which we won't do now. Then there's the God made, because of course we learned that when the God said, let's make man in our own image and likeness. So that is make. And no, but actually we see that God made man in his own image and likeness. So that's another thing we need to look at. Then we have the God set. Now God set is very interesting, because God set is actually number 8 when we do the numerical value for the word set. Now I would love to be able to do all these numerical values on here and show this, but we will approach this on another presentation. So, and we have God moved, of course, was the first act. The Spirit of God moved upon, God moved. The Spirit of God moved. Yes, so that's God moved, and of course God moved upon the waters. So Mother Eve is the waters, which is the God said. Here we have scientists now telling us about how the memory, and of course we have seen how the flowers have been formed when they have been preyed on through the waters. We have this scientist, which I don't remember the name right now, but we have seen the magic of water. So that is Mother Eve. Mother Eve is like, basically what you give to Mother Eve is what you get. But we can see, like the ocean, for instance, when she rebels, this is the S, this is the snake. And of course, this is the sea. We are talking about the sea. When Mother Eve has had enough, she knows how to turn over. She knows how to drown you till you get to understanding that you need to come up, dive down and come up. You go through that developmental stage. You need to come up, birth that newness. So that's what Mother Eve is about. So in Genesis of chapter, I think I have done the 9 gods in Genesis of chapter 1. I hadn't got them in order here, but we have got the God of cause, which would be Einstein. The God of cause and effect. And we have the God of breath, so the God who breathed. We have the God who ended, so that's 3. And we also have the God who blessed, that's 4. And the other God would be the God who formed, that's 5. So basically, what we have discovered is that these 5 gods in Genesis of chapter 2, for instance, are closely related to the 5 senses, the 5 fingers, to each, and there we see, of course, we have 5 fingers to each hands and 5 toes to each foot. That, if we count these together, that forms 20. And this is why I'm talking about the 2 again in Uranus, the 2 number of the second house. We see how these 2s are coming, and the 2, when we do the planet Pluto, which I talked about in another presentation, because Pluto is really the 14th god. Pluto is the 14th god in the underworld that we need to go and dive in and dig and find and bring her up him. This would be interesting to find ourselves, to activate. That is, so Pluto in this sense is acting as the serpent, we could say. And of course, we need to find how to maneuver our way around with Pluto so that we can find that that activation of the third eye to save our souls. Of course, because of course it is said that and God breathed in man and he became a living soul. He was living, but we also need to be saved through this life. Okay, now I say all this to remind people that I feel that I am divinely guided to bring this message across, because we're talking about 14 gods. I am of 14 children. We're talking about number 5, Mother Eve, 5 fingers, 5 senses, 5 oceans, and all of those fives. I am a 5th child. We're talking about Pluto being cast aside, and I had gone through my own journey of feeling cast aside because I am of a different father to my other 13 siblings from my mother's side. So basically, there have been a series of coincidences. Plus, as I say, number 2, I am also Taurus. There are so many things happening here. Number 9, I have 2 9s in my date of birth, and all the other numbers, of course, is 5s and 1s. We can see how the correlation is so striking that, of course, it began to give me a bit of shivers, but I'm okay now. I am okay. I am embracing this this newness and all of what is happening here. Now I'm concerned about my timer. Let me just see, because I can't see too clearly what it is now. But however, I'm going to wrap this up. Do join me again while we explore this subject again, because there is so much to unpack, and this is so vital because it also coincides with the 5 elements that we are. This is what it is. If we do not pay attention to these messages and act upon them, those 5 elements are not going to be marrying very well for us, because as an earth sign, we need to be digging the ground, till the ground and turn it over, and really, because we are planting new seeds. So thank you. Which reminds me, do stay ignited. I have not been, this is just so delicious in a way, although exciting, although it has a cocktail of emotions with it. But let's grasp what is essential for our evolution. So if you like this presentation, click the like button and share, because this is how we do it. We share to actualize in self-full love. Stay ignited. Be afield, yes, and because I usually say this in a sing, but be afield, because we are planting new seeds. That's what it's about. And particularly to earth and water signs, we need to be coming together. We have lots to do. Okay, thank you.